Shalom everyone and welcome to Busisiwe, blessed in English and Baruch in Hebrew, which means increase, fruitfulness and multiplication. My name is Abigail. Today we're starting a new series titled Knowing the End from the Beginning. As we go through this teaching of knowing the end, or as we go through this series entitled Knowing the End from the Beginning, we'll be looking at different topics. One of the topics that we'll be looking at is what is the importance of the written word. We will also look at what is it, how is it, or how do people serve Yahuah? What is the difference between serving Yahuah and serving his people? And from that topic, we'll actually learn that we are called to serve Yahuah. That's our calling. From serving Yahuah, that's when, in most of the time, he then instructs us to serve his people. And as he instructs us to serve his people, he then gives details on how we are to serve his people. We don't just go by ourselves and say that we're going to serve Yahuah. That command, that calling arise from the intimate time that you have with him as you serve him. And we will then look at how do we serve him. We will then look at how did Abraham learn the ways of Yahuah, talking about the importance of the written word. Because if you look at the book of Bereshith or Genesis, we just hear that Yahuah spoke to Abram. Yahuah spoke to Abram. But there's no way where we actually, from the book of Bereshith or Genesis, we actually learn how Abraham read the word. Like, how did he utilize the written word, not just the spoken word? And then we will then be also looking at how much the written word has been attacked. And the fact that it is attacked so much, it is because something that is written is very much more powerful than the verbal message. A written message, a written report is more powerful, trustworthy, has integrity more than the oral or verbal message or report. And we'll explain why is that the case. And then later we'll then be looking at then the history that was written by Mushah, the history of creation from day 1 to day 6. In going through the history that was written by Mushah of creation from day 1 to day 6, we'll be looking at comparing the two books, the book of Bereshith, otherwise known as Genesis, how that encounter is captured, how is it written, what is not written in them, and then we're going to compare it with the book of Jubilees, otherwise known as Yobel, the same incident of history of creation, because Mushah was given by the same angel the message to write concerning the creation history from day 1 to day 6. But you will see when we then go through these two books that the book of Bereshith or Genesis is missing some critical information, and that we're able to get such information from then the book of Jubilees or the book of Yobel. And it is why, it is for this reason I always say, in as much as we are grateful that the Bible that we have from Genesis to Revelation, but the fact that Yahuah has revealed the other books that were removed from the Bible that we have access to and are now accessible through different versions. You can get Sefer version, CEPHER, Sefer version has these books that were removed. If you go to the book of King James Version, the 1611 King James Version, it also has some of the books that were removed, otherwise known as the Apocrypha. Some of the Bibles that you can actually find in the shops has these books that were removed. I made an example with my daughter's Bible, which is part of the curriculum because she goes to a Catholic school, that it still has some of these books, like the Book of Jubilees and so forth. So you can be able to get that, and that is why it is important to say, while we have access to these books, please utilize them. And those obviously that have access to internet, you can actually Google these books, you'll be able to find them on internet. We then start with why is it important that the word of Yahuah must be written, and then we're going to be looking at who is the first person that started writing, and then what happened later. If we go to the book of Jubilees, or Yobel chapter 2 verse 1 to 3, it reads, "And the angel of the presence spoke to Mushah according to the word of Yahuah, saying, Write the complete history of the creation, how in 6 days Yahuah Aluah finished all his works, all that he created, and kept Shabbat on the 7th day, and sanctified it for all ages, and appointed it as a sign for all his works." Now, the point to emphasize there is, number one, this message that was written, or rather the message, the fact that it says that Yahuah kept the Shabbat, and he also sanctified it for all ages, and that he commanded us to also observe the Shabbat from generation to generation, so there is no ending to it. People think that Mushah was only given 10 commandments to write, and that couldn't be. If you think about it, Mushah was on Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights. So how could he have written only 10 commandments in 40 days and 40 nights? Now we understand from the book of Jubilees, or the book of Yobel, that he actually also written the entire history of creation from day 1 to day 6. Now, you can ask yourself, why is it important to Yahuah to get Mushah to write the complete history of creation? Number one, Yahuah reveals himself not only through a spoken word, but he also reveals himself through a written word. Oftentimes, you will actually have a spoken word followed by the written word, or have both at the same time. But he does not only want us to hear just his word, but he also wants us to read his word. And that's why the book of Revelation states that blessed are those who hear the word of this book, and those that read the words of this book, because there is blessing in not only the word that you hear, but the word that you also read yourself. The assembly in Berea, we hear that after Shaul spoke to them about the word, they went and searched the scriptures for themselves. So they went and read to confirm what they heard, because there's so much danger if you only rely on spoken word, whether from someone who's teaching the word, or a prophet, or whoever, a pastor, a preacher. You should not only live and rely on the word that you have heard, but you have a responsibility to read for yourself, hence the importance of the written word. The other thing that we also see is that Yahuah reveals himself through his word. He revealed himself to Abraham through his word, to Mushah through his word, and even when Yahushua revealed himself to Shaul when he was on his way to Damascus, Yahushua revealed himself to Shaul through his word, because he spoke and Shaul heard his word. What's very interesting here is that Acts chapter 26, the book of Acts chapter 26, where Yahuah spoke to Shaul, the word specifically tells us that he spoke in Hebrew. What is the significance that we had to be told that he spoke in Hebrew? We will get to that later. But I also want to refer to my own personal testimony, which I spoke about in one of the series where I was introducing myself and introducing Busisiwe as who, when I said that I always believe in the who before the what. So before I come and speak, as I've been putting messages, but you need to know the person behind these messages that she is proclaiming. In my case, Yahuah revealed himself to me in my room at university in October 1997. And in my case, he revealed himself through a written word. I did not hear any voice, but I saw, because suddenly there were writings on my desk where I was seated studying, on the walls of my room at varsity, and even on the floor. Everywhere it was written, and the words that were written was that he saves, Yahuah saves, and that he loves me and that he cares for me. These were just 3 words, that he saves, he loves me, and that he cares. It scared me when that incident happened. You can go through that teaching, or rather that testimony that I have posted in the one of the, what do you call it, the links that I have, the series that I have where I introduce myself. But there are people that actually testified when the incident happened, because they saw the writings, and those writings, I think they disappeared after 3 days. Anyway, this is not about me, it is about Yahuah and his word being written. The other thing is that he communicates through his word. And the other part that is important about the written word is that writing maintains the original integrity of what was said. And because if the message is passed verbally, we've all played, or most of us have played, the game of Hambo Tenge Omu, or go by Omu, or whatever thing, go by something, that a message, when it moves from the first person to the 20th person, something below, in between, it is it's called like lost in translation, like people do not get the exact message that was spoken. And the other thing also that happens, which is a safe net that we have about the written word, is that there's limited margin for miscommunication, because it will be written just as it was spoken, and also misunderstanding, because someone might misunderstand what was said. So that is why it is more beneficial, there's more integrity on the written word than on the word spoken verbally. People can also forget. I can know anything now. That's why in my case I write my dreams, because while I have them, when I wake up I write the dream, because later on I will forget what I dreamed. It's the same with the verbal message. You might hear a message, but 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, you might forget what you actually heard. And the power also of the written message is that it can be transferred from one generation to another. That is the importance then of the written word. And it's also important that the language in which the message was spoken, that it maintains the same language. And we do understand that there are now different languages. So in that case, what needs to happen is transliteration, not translation. Translation is just to move word from one word to another word, let's say from Hebrew to English. But when you transliterate, you then maintain the sound on how that message was spoken or how that word was spoken. You take into account the context under which and what was happening under the time when the message was written. That is the importance of transliteration. And again, it also helps to have them to limit too many transliteration from one language to the 20th language. So if the language was originally spoken or written in Hebrew, it is easier to just translate it from, let's say, from Hebrew to English, or from Hebrew to Afrikaans, or from Hebrew to Zulu, or but from not, once you have so many languages in between, it further gets diluted. So if you think about it, from Hebrew to Greek, from Greek to Latin, from Latin to English, from English to Zulu, by the time it gets to Zulu, in most likelihood, it has lost the meaning. That is why it's important that we learn to the best of our abilities. If we obviously we do not understand, we do not know the language of the first that was first spoken, the second language that was then close to it in terms of transliteration. And as I said also, we will then be looking at the comparison of this history of creation from the book of Genesis and what was written, or Parashith, in the book of Jubilee. And the reason why we're going to be seeing that is then we'll be able to see that what information was not captured in the book of Parashith or in the book of Genesis, hence the emphasis of then accessing the other books that were removed, like the book of Enoch, Jubilees, Joshua, 4th Ezra, Sirach, and so many others. And it's very sad for the believers who are attacking the very same books and knowing how much wealth of information is available on those books. But we'll talk about that topic about the written word being attacked later, as I mentioned. Hanok was the first person to write. Now, if Hanok was the first person to write, it's also said to realize that the very first person who learned to write, the very same person who actually wrote a book named after him, the book of Enoch, which has about 105 chapters, that it was removed from our books, and other people are actually discrediting it. That is very sad, but we'll get to that. Now let's look at Jubilees chapter 4 verse 15 to 21, or Yobel chapter 4 verse 15 to 21. In the second week of the 10th Jubilee, Mahalalel took unto him to be his wife Dinah, the daughter of Bariakel, the daughter of his father's brother. And she bore him a son in the 3rd week in the 6th year, and he called his name Yered. For in his days the angels of Yahuah descended on the earth, those who are named the Watchers, that they should instruct the children of men, and that they should do judgment and uprightness on the earth. Now, these Watchers, they descended in the year in which Yered was born, or the time at which Yered was born, hence his name was Yered. And the purpose of the Watchers, they were to instruct the children of men in Yahuah's way. They were to do judgment and uprightness on earth, which is said that they corrupted the very same purpose that they came to, and hence they slept with women, and then the Nephilim came out. But the whole purpose for them coming was not to corrupt the world, but they were to teach mankind Yahuah's ways. In the 11th Jubilee, Yered took to himself a woman, and her name was Barakah, the daughter of Rasuel, a daughter of his father's brother, in the 4th week of this Jubilee. And she bore him a son in the 5th week, in the 4th year of the Jubilee, and he called his name Hanok. So Hanok was born as a son of Yared. It continues to read, he was the first among men that are born on earth who learned writing. So this is now where we find out that Hanok was the first man, was the first man born on earth who learned writing. Not only did he learn writing, but also had the knowledge and wisdom to write the signs of the heaven according to the order of their months in a sefer or in a book, that men might know the seasons of the years according to the order of their separate months. And he was the first to write a testimony, and he testified to the sons of men according to the generations of the earth, and recounted the weeks of the jubilees, and made known to them the days of the years, and set in order the months, and recounted the Shabbats of the years as we made them known, as the angels, the Malachim, made them known to Enoch, Hanok. So when the angels came and spoke to Mushah, giving him instructions around, or rather giving him the complete history of creation, that was not the first time that the angels were teaching a human being to write. The first person that were taught and was given a message regarding all that which I've just mentioned here was Enoch or Hanok. And Hanok wrote of the Shabbats of the years as we made them known to him, as the angels made them known to him. And what was and what will be, he saw in a vision of his sleep. So Hanok also, through the vision of his sleep, it was revealed to him, or he was shown what was and what was to come, as it will happen to the children of men throughout the generations until the day of judgment. He saw and understood everything, and wrote his testimony, and placed the testimony on the earth for all children of men and for their generation. So what was revealed to Hanok was not only for his generation, but was also for a generation which was to come, throughout their generation until the day of judgment, until the final last generation. All that information was revealed to Hanok or Enoch. He was moreover with the angels of Aluah these 6 jubilees, which is 294 years. 6 jubilee is, a jubilee is 49 years, so 49 times 6, it is 294 years. So he was with the angels for 294 years, the same watchers that were teaching men the ways of Yahuah. And the word tells us that he lived for 365 years. This is also written in the book of Bereshit or Genesis, that Enoch lived for 365 years, and then he walked with Yahuah. The angels, they showed him everything which is on earth and which is in the heavens, the rule of the sun. He wrote them down, and he wrote them everything. So not only was Enoch showed everything on the earth, but he was also shown things that are in the heavens. And if we look at the book of Enoch or Hanok, chapter 12, verse 4 to 5, it says, "Behold, the watchers called Hanok the scribe." He was even called by the angels or the Malachim the scribe. Yahuah himself also called Hanok the scribe, as it says, "Then Yahuah said to me, Hanok or Enoch, scribe of obedience, go tell the watchers," whatever the instruction that then Yahuah gave to Enoch to go and pass it over to the watchers. But even Yahuah addressed Hanok or Enoch as a scribe. Now, we then look at what is it to serve Yahuah and how do we serve Yahuah? Because a lot of us think that by serving people, automatically we are serving Yahuah. Meanwhile, serving Yahuah actually serving people come from serving Yahuah. As we've learned that Enoch was the first person to write or who learned writing, we also learned that he was the first person, or rather we learned from Enoch how to serve Yahuah. We learned from Enoch about serving Yahuah, which is also, I'm emphasizing the point to say, if there is so much about this person, how come the book of Bereshith says so little about him? He's the first man who learned to write. He's the first person that we learn from about serving Yahuah. The first man who didn't die but walked with Yahuah. This is Enoch. Yes, Eliyahu or Elijah also didn't die, but that was later. The first person that we know that did not die but walked with Yahuah was Enoch. Again, what is it about this person? There's so much that we can learn and that we should learn from this person, Hanok, which is again very sad that his book was removed from the Bible, and so many believers are actually discrediting his book, which we learn so much from him, being the first person to learn writing, being the first person that we're learning from how to serve Yahuah, and the first person who never died, who actually walked from earth to the Shemayim directly with Yahuah. Why would the book of Bereshith or Genesis only write about him to the extent of his genealogy? The book of Genesis only talks about him as far as his genealogy is concerned. Hanok is only captured in the book of Bereshith or in the book of Genesis, in Genesis chapter 5, verse 18 to 24. Only that. Yet there's so much to learn from him. This person wrote a book named after him, as I said, with 105 chapters. He wrote about the creation, the sun, the moon, the stars, the seasons, the years. He wrote about the watchers, the Nephilim, the flood, the end times generations. And if he wrote about so many things, why wouldn't we read this book that he wrote? Shemoth at some point also quotes him in the book of, I think it's 1 Peter, where he makes reference to, or he quotes from the book of Enoch. That is why I'm emphasizing that, yes, at some point we never had access to these books, but there is now no excuse with the access to internet that we have and other books, or rather, and other Bible versions that I've mentioned that have these books that were removed. I spoke about another person who did not die and walked with Yahuah. Actually, he didn't walk with Yahuah. He was taken to heaven in the chariots of fire, and that was Eliyahu or Elijah. There is so much written about Eliyahu or Elijah that we find mainly in the book of Kings, but not so with regards to Hanok, which is said. But now we are talking and preaching and teaching about or from the book of Enoch, and that everyone can now have access to this book. As it talks about serving, that when I started opening, I talked about that serving Yahuah is not serving people. Then the question is, what is it to serve Yahuah? And how do we serve him? Because normally we associate serving Yahuah with working for Yahuah, either through preaching, teaching, prophesying, and so forth. Those are the things that we say that I'm serving Yahuah if I'm doing something for him, if I'm working for him. Is that what serving Yahuah mean? Does working for Yahuah equate to serving Yahuah? And the answer is no. And we're going to see why working for Yahuah does not mean serving Yahuah. If we look at the book of Shemoth, or Exodus chapter 8 verse 1 and Exodus chapter 9 verse 1, we read, "And Yahuah spoke to Mushah and said, Go to Pharaoh and say to him, Thus says Yahuah, let my people go so that they can serve me." Now, that's exactly that it answers that working for Yahuah does not equate to serving Yahuah. When Yahuah spoke to Mushah and instructed him to go to Pharaoh and tell Pharaoh that he must say, "Let my people go so that they can worship, so that they can serve me," how are they going to, if we define serving as preaching, as teaching, as prophesying, as working, who are they going to preach to in the wilderness? Who are they going to teach in the wilderness? Who are they going to prophesy to in the wilderness? So what we in our minds have associated and termed serving Yahuah is not how he defines serving him. But we'll then go to then what exactly is then serving him. We find or we learn about what is it to serve Yahuah again from Hanok. And if we read the book of Joshua, otherwise known as Yasha, in chapter 3, so Joshua chapter 3 from verse 1 to 2, it says, "Hanok lived 65 years, and he begat Methuselah, and Hanok walked with Aluah after having begat Methuselah, and he served Yahuah, despised the evil ways of men. And the soul of Hanok, or Enoch, was wrapped up in the instructions of Yahuah, in the knowledge and in understanding, and he wisely retired from the sons of men." He served Yahuah. This is what we're told. But we're told that he retired himself from the sons of men. So now you already see that he did something else that is not then working for Yahuah, as far as how we defined working for Yahuah, because the way it tells us that he retired from the sons of men. He served Yahuah. How did he serve then Yahuah? How are we expected? How are we to serve Yahuah? It continues to say he secreted himself from them for many days. He separated himself from men for many days. And the answer to the question, how did Hanok serve Yahuah, is found in verse 17 to verse 19 of Joshua chapter 3. So Joshua chapter 3 verse 17 to 19 then tells us how did Hanok serve Yahuah. And it reads, "It was in the year of Adam's death, which was the 243 year of the reign of Hanok. In that time, Hanok resolved to separate himself from the sons of men, and to secrete himself as at first to serve Yahuah." There we go again. Serving Yahuah is separate from being with men or with people. Hanok did so, but did not entirely secrete himself from them, but kept away from the sons of men 3 days, and then went to them for 1 day. So again, look at the ratio here. Hanok was spending more time with Yahuah than with men. It tells us that he dedicated 3 days to Yahuah only. He dedicated 3 days serving Yahuah. We will also still come to what was he doing in the 3 days. That which he was doing is then the definition of serving Yahuah. That is what is called serving Yahuah. And he was only with the sons of men, only for 1 day. It's very sad that in our times, the preachers, the teachers, the pastors, the prophets, the workers in the kingdom, they are spending more time with people than with Yahuah, which is supposed to be vice versa. We are supposed to be spending more time with Yahuah than we do with men. And during the 3 days that he was in his chamber, he prayed and praised Yahuah. So now we are now told, what is it that he did when he was with Yahuah? Now we are told that he prayed and he praised Yahuah. That is serving Yahuah. Serving Yahuah is praying to Yahuah. Serving Yahuah is praising Yahuah. Serving Yahuah is worshiping Yahuah. What then comes is in the atmosphere of spending time with Yahuah in prayer, in praise, and in worship, then he then instructs us to go serve the people. We get instruction to serve people when we serve him. We get instruction to serve people when we are with him. It is for this reason that we spend more time with him than with people, because ultimately he is the one that calls us, not people. He's the one that we serve, not people. And that is why it's so sad that later you find preachers preaching what the people want to hear, because they have now twisted the roles. Who is your boss? Who do you account to? Who called you? Who instructs you? What did he instruct you? Some people say, why, Abigail, are you only preaching these messages? Why are you not preaching other messages that are preached by other people? There is nothing wrong with the message that is preached by other people or taught by other people. But Yahuah has revealed this to me, and he has instructed me to teach on this. It's not only this kind of message that I'm teaching on, but I need to be faithful to that which he has instructed me to teach on, to preach on, to prophesy on. Not what is popular, not what is easy, not what is acceptable, because I'm not called by the people, but I'm called by him. As he calls me, then he tells me what to do, what to preach, what to teach on, or what, if he gives me a word of prophecy, what message must I declare as he reveals to me. And I believe it is the same, and it should be, if it is not the same, with other brothers and sisters out there. Now, we said that Hanok prayed and praised Yahuah, and that's the definition of serving: to pray, praise, and worship Yahuah. Now, the English word prayer comes from the old French term or word prière, probably am pronouncing it wrong. I'm not French, clearly can see that. Which means to obtain something through entreaty. Prayer is thus most associated with asking for the fulfillment of our needs. So then prayer is then associated with asking. It is associated with asking something to be fulfilled, our need or a need that must be fulfilled. Prayer has a different definition though in Hebrew. That is why it's very important to see things from the Hebrew perspective, as the word was written in Hebrew, or originally written or communicated in Hebrew. In Hebrew, the word prayer is tefillah. Tefillah means bonding, connection. So when you're saying that you are having a moment of tefillah, you are meaning that you are having a moment of bonding with Yahuah, of connecting with Yahuah. That is totally different from praying, because praying is just like they say in court, I pray, my Lord, that this and this and this happen, or to the magistrate, you are asking something from the judge or the magistrate. But from the Hebrew perspective, the name is actually tefillah, that is generally used as prayer. And to tefillah is to bond, is to connect. It means to attach and to bind together. Tefillah is therefore not a transactional exchange, but an expression of intimacy. Tefillah is a declaration of love, and it is at that particular moment when you're having intimacy with Yahuah, when you're declaring your love for Yahuah to Him in worship, in praise, as you are bonding with Him, as you are attaching yourself to Him, as you are connecting with Him, even as the word tells us that Hanok or Enoch wrapped his soul was wrapped, intertwined with Yahuah. It is at that particular moment that you can then ask whatever need that you have. And you have the boldness to ask and confidence to ask whatever it is that you need, or for the benefit of other people, because He is delighted in you. It is like children, when our kids have delighted us and we are delighted in them, whatever it is that they ask, we give them. And that's why Yahuah said in Yahuah or John 15, abide in me and my word abide in you. Then you will ask whatever you want and I will give it for you, and I will do it for you. The condition, the atmosphere for asking must come as a result of abiding. It must come as a result of intimacy, must come as a result of connection, of bonding, of attaching yourself, of being one. It becomes easier because Yahuah has accepted you. And if you have been accepted, then your supplication or your request will then be heard. Your request, not only will it be heard, but will be answered. We learned this from the two brothers, Cain and Abel. The word tells us that Yahuah accepted Abel and then his offering. But it was first and foremost in him, his character, his person, as a result of the relationship that he had with Yahuah, he was accepted. And then after his offering was accepted. But to the contrary, or on the contrary, Cain's offering was not accepted because he was not in, his heart was not in the right place. He was not accepted by Yahuah. This is what we then learn about tefillah. So if we can practice this term of moving away from the term prayer, which has a connotation or association with asking, but to tefillah, which is bonding, connecting, attaching, being one, worshiping, praising Yahuah. This is then the definition of serving Yahuah. If we read the book of Mark chapter 1 verse 35, it says, having risen very early in the morning, Yahushua went out and went away to a lonely place, and there he prayed. So Yahushua did just like Hanok did, that he secretly separated himself from men, and he went while it was very early in the morning, while it was still dark. He went out. He went out of his place, house, wherever he was staying, and went away, went from his comfort zone. That's why even for praying, don't pray when you're on your bed. Step out of your bed and pray outside of your bed, if you can move outside of the room, even better. But go to a place that you can then have fellowship with him. Yahushua went away to a lonely place, and there he prayed. Now let's replace prayed with tefillah, and there he tefillahd. He bonded with Yahuah. He connected with Yahuah. He had intimacy with Yahuah. He attached himself with Yahuah. He became one. He wrapped himself and became one with Yahuah and his word. And if we read the book of Luke chapter 2, from verse 36 to 37, Luke chapter 2, verse 36 to 7, it says, Hannah, the prophetess, served Aluah with fastings and prayer. This is a definition of serving Yahuah. How do we serve Yahuah? You serve Yahuah with prayer, which we now know, and we can now replace it with the word tefillah. Hannah, the prophetess, served Yahuah with fastings and tefillah, which is to attach himself to Yahuah, bind himself to Yahuah, connect himself to Yahuah, wrap himself to Yahuah in praise, in worship, and in fastings. When you do that, when you serve that, and we even also saw there's the part where Martha complained to Yahushua. He said, Miriam is sitting down at your feet and I'm busy serving. She was serving people. She said, I'm busy serving people. Ask Miriam to come help me serve. And Yahushua responded, Martha, Martha, you are so overwhelmed by so many other things. Miriam has found the right thing, which is to sit at the feet of Yahushua and listen to his word. To sit at the feet of Yahushua, bonding with him, connecting with him, wrapping herself to his instruction. That is serving Yahuah. And what then happens is that from serving Yahuah, that is when an instruction to then serve people come. The instruction to serve people emanates from you, from us serving Yahuah. And we see this in the book of Joshua chapter 3, verse 3 to 6. And it was at the expiration of many years, while he was serving Yahuah and praying, which we now know that is tefillah, before him in his house, that an angel of Yahuah called to him from heaven, and he said, Here am I. And the angel said, Rise, go forth from your house and from the place where you hide yourself and appear to the sons of men, in order that you may teach them the way in which they should go, and the way which they must accomplish to enter the ways of Aluah. The instruction came from the angel to Hanok while he was serving Yahuah in worship, in praise, in intimacy, in bonding, in connecting, in attaching himself, in wrapping himself with him. Then the instruction to go serve people came. Then Hanok rose up according to the word of Yahuah and went forth from his house, from his place, from the chamber in which he was concealed. He went to the sons of men and taught them the ways of Yahuah, and at that time assembled the sons of men and appointed them with the instructions of Yahuah. He ordered it to be proclaimed in all the places where the sons of men dwell, saying, where is the man who wishes to know the ways of Yahuah and good works? Let him come to Hanok. Hanok got an instruction to serve the people while he was serving Yahuah. And then he then assembled the people together. He then taught them the ways of Yahuah. He then ordered that they go out and proclaim in all places that whoever wants to hear the ways of Yahuah, or whoever wants to know the ways of Yahuah and the good works, let them come to Hanok. This is the importance of spending time with Yahuah. We will then stop at this point, and then later we'll then be looking at how then did Abraham learn the ways of Yahuah, and how was the written word of Yahuah attacked. Shalom.